What's up, guys? It's Casual Andy here. Today I'm going to be going over the Lightning Spear Sorcerer build in Diablo 4. So you can see the damage output's pretty high. So first thing we're going to talk about is the gear. So the most important piece of gear from this build is the Fractured Winterglass Amulet. You can farm it from Zir. I'll read you the affix. Casting a Frozen Orb has a 59% chance to spawn a random conjuration when it explodes. Frozen Orb is a core skill. You cast it, it explodes. That gives it a chance to proc Lightning Spear, which is a conjuration skill. If your conjuration skills that you cast have a lucky hit, the second affix, then they can cast another Frozen Orb, which can then cast another conjuration skill. So there's some heavy synergy between Lightning Spear and Frozen Orb, which is why we're casting Frozen Orb most of the time. The masterworking priority on this is conjuration cooldown reduction up here. The key word here is casting a Frozen Orb has a chance to spawn a conjuration when it explodes. And we'll go over to the gloves here for a second. The legendary aspect of our gloves, Frozen Orbit, makes our Frozen Orb explode 2 different times. So we have a total of 3 explosions, 3 chances to cast Lightning Spear whenever we cast Frozen Orb. And also 3 chances to reduce the cooldown of Lightning Spear, so we can cast it ourselves. So not only is Lightning Spear going to be cast from our Frozen Orbs, but it's on our skill bar, and we're going to be casting it too when the cooldown's reduced from Fractured Winterglass. Lightning Spear is our main source of damage with this build because of this aspect right here, the aspect of splintering energy. So critical hits with Lightning Spear cause lightning to arc from it, dealing 7,000 damage to its target and 5 other enemies, which is a lot of area of effect damage. This damage is increased by our critical strike damage bonus. So that means we're going to be prioritizing critical strike damage bonus and critical strike chance on most of our gear. The stat priorities for the staff are going to be intelligence, maximum life, and critical strike damage. For tempering, our offensive temper is going to be critical strike damage. For the weapon tempering, we're going to have a chance for a second Lightning Spear to be cast. The reason we're using a staff for this aspect is because when you're using a two-hander, your legendary affix doubles. On a one-handed, would be split in half to 35,000 damage, and it would seriously reduce the damage of the build. This right here is our main source of damage. The critical strike multiplier with the Lightning Spear arcing with that 7,000 damage, those two together are going to have extreme damage potential for this build. And then we go back up to the gloves, we're going to see that we stacked attack speed, critical strike chance, critical strike damage. We tempered for critical strike damage, and we have a utility Lightning Spear lucky hit chance for cooldown reduction for a chance for another conjuration. Masterworking priority on the staff would be critical strike damage. Ideally, you want your critical strike damage and your 25% affix increases to land on the temper because the temper has higher rolls. Our masterworking priorities for the gloves are going to be also on the temper of critical strike damage because of its higher rolls. For the ring, we have Talrosh's Loop. The main function for the ring is cooldown reduction for more uptime on our Lightning Spear. Masterworking priority on Talrosh's Loop is going to be for cooldown reduction. For the unique affix, it gives us a bit of a damage increase, a big multiplier from each type of elemental damage we cast. So we cast lightning, we cast cold from Frozen Orbit, and we also cast fire. Our boots are Isu's Heirloom. They drop from Varshan, just like the ring, and they take some of our movement speed bonus and put it as critical strike chance. So it's a big additive bonus for our critical strike chance. Masterworking priority on this one depends on what you need at the time. I put mine on movement speed, and I kept it because I needed the additional critical strike chance. If you want more damage, you can prioritize your masterworking with critical strike damage. What's also cool about this build is that Tyrael's Might also gives you a pretty big movement speed bonus, which can add to your critical strike chance because of these boots. So our chest piece is Tyrael's Might. It drops for any of the tormented bosses at 7.2% chance drop rate. This is a really hard piece to pass up for any build because of the damage reduction and the resistance to all elements and the max resistance to all elements. Harlequin's Crest is great for damage reduction, and that's what we're using in this build. The biggest thing we get out of it is its cooldown reduction, and that should be our masterworking priority. For me, it also solved the armor problem and helped me cap my armor at 9200. We benefit from the damage reduction. We're not really worried about the plus ranks to Lightning Spear. It doesn't benefit from that because its main source of damage is from the splintering energy affix on our staff. So for me, I'm using Ring of Starless Skies on this build for my second ring. I don't think it's bad. I needed critical strike chance. Attack speed also feels really good for me on my build, so I went with this. If you're not going to do this, you can go with a Storm Swell ring, prioritizing attack speed, critical strike chance, and critical strike damage, with critical strike damage tempering and then Lightning Spear cooldown reduction for the second temper. That's a utility temper. You'll have more uptime on your Lightning Spear if you go with a different ring that's Storm Swell and then you temper it with Lightning Spear cooldown reduction. So there's a benefit to having just a regular legendary ring. When I'm using Starless Skies, you also benefit from damage and resource management. Tybalt's Will is good for resource management. It gives us a damage increase when we become unstoppable, and it gives us a damage reduction when we become unstoppable. Our unstoppable comes from Flame Shield and Teleport. For the skills, we have Firebolt as our basic. It's not on the skill bar. The reason we have it is for its enchantment effect. It'll help us apply burning damage, which gives us a multiplier from Talrosh's Loop and another passive that we'll get to in a bit. For Frozen Orb, I didn't put any points into it because I already had plus to all my skills from Harlequin's Crest and my Starless Skies. You don't need any modifiers on this one, but we do need it on our skill bar because we're going to be casting it the most. So like the build suggests, Lightning Spear is our main source of damage. We don't need to worry about putting ranks into it. We just put one rank into it so that we can get the Enhanced Lightning Spear here and the Invoked Lightning Spear. The Enhanced Lightning Spear is going to give us an additional 15% critical strike chance for Lightning Spear. And that's not going to show up in our stats, but it'll land our Lightning Spear on near 100% critical strike chance. Invoked Lightning Spear will stun enemies for 2 seconds when critically striking, and we're going to get the big damage multiplier from Control Paragon Glyph. Unstable Currents is our ultimate. We're going to get a lot of cooldown reduction. It will proc pretty quickly. We'll have a lot of uptime on it, even though the cooldown is 40 seconds. It increases our attack speed, which feels good, gives us more of those frozen orbs. We pulse Crackling Energy for free at a 25% faster rate. So while Unstable Currents is up, we can cast Chain Lightning. So we put 1 point into Chain Lightning, and we put another point into Enhanced Chain Lightning in order to get a chance to form Crackling Energy from Destructive Chain Lightning. Also, while Unstable Currents is up, we have a chance to cast Charged Bolts here into Enhanced Charged Bolts and Destructive Charged Bolts. It gives us a chance to give some 25% damage reduction. Another thing for Unstable Currents is that because it gives us Crackling Energy, our key passive is going to have that reduce our cooldowns for our shock skill, i.e. Lightning Spear. And also thanks to one of our Paragon nodes, Charged, it's also going to give us a damage multiplier. Ice Armor is going to be a really good defensive skill, and we're going to have a lot of uptime on it thanks to our cooldown reduction. It gives us a huge, almost 80% barrier, which almost doubles our max life while it's up. And we should cast it every time it's off cooldown. Flame Shield is one of our best panic buttons. It makes us immune. It's another source of unstoppable, which because of Tybalt's Will, helps us with resource management. Teleport's another good panic button. You get a Enhanced Teleport, gives you a 30% movement speed for 3 seconds after teleporting. And it gives you 30% damage reduction. So if you ever just need to get the hell out of there and run away, cast Teleport. Okay, last skill we're going to talk about here is Ice Blades. We put 1 point into it to get Enhanced Ice Blades, and then Summoned Ice Blades. 20% of its cooldown is applied to your other skills, giving us more uptime on our Lightning Spear. The Ice Blades enchantment enables us to cast it randomly without it being on our skill bar. All right, let's talk about our passives. We'll start with the core passive that I have. This is a good defensive passive. I don't need it because I have Tyraels, but if you don't have Tyraels, maybe consider putting your Masterworking into Potent Warding on your boots. I put 2 points into Elemental Attunement because more defensiveness is good. We have a big damage multiplier with Glass Cannon. Precision Magic gives us a 15% increase to our lucky hit chance. I put +3 ranks into all 3 of these passives. This one gives us a big damage reduction against elites. This one right here, another 30% damage reduction every time we spend mana. And this right here, using a cooldown, Lightning Spear, gives us a 30% barrier. So between this and Ice Armor, we're having a lot of barrier and a lot of good defensiveness. Conjuration Mastery can give us a pretty big damage increase. Over here with our Mastery passives, we get Inner Flames so that we can get Devouring Blaze. And because of our Firebolt enchantment, Devouring Blaze has a lot of uptime. So it's a critical strike damage multiplier. So this is super important. We put a point into Coursing Currents so that we can get Electrocution, which gives us some damage reduction. Overflowing Energy is our key passive here, and this is going to give us a lot of cooldown on our Lightning Spear. On our starter board, we're going to have a Paragon Glyph of Elementalist. It's going to give us up to a 15% damage multiplier. We'll go up to the Burning Instinct Paragon Board, which we will not get that legendary node. We'll put Control to the left in our Glyph socket. Control is going to give us up to a 20% damage multiplier, and that's because Lightning Spear is going to stun each enemy that it critically strikes. It's going to have a lot of critical strike uptime. We'll go over to the left to our Enchantment Master Paragon Board, which we will not get that legendary node, and this is going to give us an 8% damage multiplier. We'll go to the left over to the Enchantment Master Paragon Board, and we'll put Unleash in this Paragon socket. It's going to give us an 8% damage multiplier. We'll go up from there to get the Frigid Fate legendary node. Frigid Fate is going to give us a 60% damage multiplier. That's going to be capped by Talrash's Loop. For our Paragon Glyph, we'll use Charged. Picking up Crackling Energy gives us up to a 15% damage multiplier. So now Crackling Energy is doing two things: reducing our cooldown for Lightning Spear and multiplying our damage. We'll go all the way to the left with Elemental Summoner legendary node. Cooldown reduction and a 60% damage multiplier. This one's also capped by Talrash's Loop. Conjurer right here. This is an important glyph. It gives us 20% increased duration for our Lightning Spear. To the right of the Frigid Fate board, we're going to go to the Ceaseless Conduit Paragon board, and we're not going to get that legendary node here. The glyph we're going to use here is Destruction, and we need to max it out to get all of our critical strike damage, and it gives us up to a 12% damage multiplier. From there, we go directly up to the Searing Heat Paragon board, which we do not get that legendary node. And we use Exploit here for a 10% damage multiplier. To the right of Exploit, we go to the Static Surge Paragon board, which we do not get that legendary node. And we use the Flame Feeder Paragon glyph. Gives us a 10% damage multiplier against burning enemies. And because of our Firebolt enchantment, every enemy is burning. All right, lady. And there you have it. Super fun build. Really high damage potential. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, press the like button. If you like me, subscribe. Peace.